How animals see has always been a mystery that has fascinated humans. We attribute them exceptional abilities, impressed with the behaviors observed in nature or close to home. Vision is the predominant sense in humans. Even if we are very attentive to sounds and sensitive to odors, our vision remains our main sense, and we are constantly solicited by the information that surrounds us. Without even being conscious of it, we can perceive light, colors, forms, textures, movement, distance, and relief. All of this information is taken in through our eyes, but there are things that our eyes cannot see, like what's happening behind our backs. The position of the eyes on the head determines the visual field of each species. Anne Cleary and Dennis Connolly are both Irish and artists living in Paris. They are inspired by animal vision to create headsets simulating different visual fields. We asked Leah, our volunteer, to test the headsets of both artists.
Wow, this is awesome. So if I lower my head, I see little animals that are tiny below me. Try to tap my hand. You see? Not easy, huh? There are several headsets that explore animal vision. And the giraffe one is really the simplest. It simply alters your perception of the scale, and you feel so much taller.
And you see with both eyes?
Yes, I can see.
You have to get used to that. Closing one eye, open the other, alternating.
The visual field is very different from one species to another. With the chameleon headset, Leah can see in front and behind at the same time.
There are other animals that can see two things at the same time. Others that have eyes on the side of the head, others with a significant distance between each eye, some that can see in front and behind at the same time. There are animals that have more than two eyes. There are many different ways of looking at the world. And that's what led us to explore what it would be like to be a human, looking at the world in these different ways.
Our eyes being situated forwards, our field of vision is narrower than that of a horse, whose eyes are positioned laterally.
Horses have eyes on both sides with a very broad vision on both sides and a blind area in front. The horse has a blind zone of about 12 degrees. And that means that when you wear the horse headset, you see really well on each side, but since the vision is deformed, we have the impression that these two images are in front of us. It's very confusing. I can't see my hand.
Tap my hand. And now Anne.
Oh, I understand. So that's on the right and that's on the left.
The visual field represents the portion of space seen by an eye that is motionless and looking forward. The area that we see when we fix a point is limited. Our vision is around 120 degrees. A rabbit's vision is almost 360 degrees. Like most prey, they have eyes positioned on the side of the head and are therefore able to see what's going on behind them. An advantage that allows them to escape from predators, which often have eyes positioned at the front of the head to be precise when hunting. Simon Potier is a researcher. He works on the vision of raptors, birds of prey.
A
bird of prey that hunts, like the Harris or the Aguiar hawks, have what is called a rigid brow, which is very important for them, as it prevents sunlight from interfering with the retina. And this is going to increase detection capabilities because they always search for prey that are beneath them, so they don't need to see upwards. Conversely, if we take a bird hunter, for example the northern goshawk, it has a wider field of vision, it has a smaller brow, and sunlight will attain the retina. But even if it thus loses in visual ability, it will still be able to follow prey detected above.
The advantage of having two eyes that cut across the same field of vision is to allow binocular vision, which enables a better analysis of the distance that separates us from, for example, an obstacle or a prey. The image received by the left eye is offset with regards to that received by the right eye. It's the brain that adjusts both images and provides this relief effect. Anne and Dennis are also interested in binocular vision. They were inspired by the hammerhead shark that has eyes that are very wide apart from each other.
It's a challenge to be able to offer a stereoscopic depth of our world with the super binocular vision like that of the hammerhead. We met problems. Humans have a brain with limited plasticity, and it refuses to understand that vision with two eyes situated apart offers depth of vision. It prefers to think that the world is small.
Every animal has a different field of vision and suitable for its needs. If our field of vision is limited to 120 degrees, this does not mean that our view is less efficient, because other factors come into play, including visual acuity. We are able to distinguish a detail of about 1 millimeter on an object located at 3 meters from us, and certain animals have a reputation for being able to do a lot better.
It's said that birds of prey have a visual acuity significantly superior to that of humans. Well, that is not true. Some will have a visual acuity superior to humans, like the tawny vulture or the wedge-tailed eagle, because they fly to very high altitudes to seek their food, so they're going to need to see far. However, the Harris hawk, or even as extreme opposite, the Chimango caracara, which is a species that feeds directly on the ground, don't need to see far, and their visual acuity will be less than a human.
To test the visual acuity of raptors, birds of prey, 2 screens are presented to each Harris hawk, a uniform grey screen and a screen with alternating bars. Then the space between the bars is gradually reduced.
If the Harris hawk or another individual moves toward the grey screen, we give it food. If it goes to the other screen, we don't give food. When this learning and conditioning phase is over, hawks will always move towards the grey screen because it results in food. Once it heads there, we reduce the bar size, so they are much finer, which allows us to see what size bar they can discern and so at what distance they can see an object of a known size.
This experiment allows us to identify the Harris hawk's visual acuity and its ability to perceive contrasts.
What one must retain is that its vision is perfect for a task known to it, meaning it is perfect for a certain type of behavior. Birds of prey have better vision for their behavior, humans have better vision for their behavior.
But is the eye of the bird of prey, raptor, different from ours? How do our eyes capture visual information? When we perceive an image, the interior of the eye focuses on it, and light rays reach the retina. The retina is the thin membrane that lines the back of the eye. This retina is made up of 2 types of photoreceptor cells that play a major role in vision, the rods and cones. The cones are responsible for our central vision and color vision. The rods are involved in the field of vision, the vision of movement, as well as night vision. Our eye has 3 cones, sensitive respectively to blue, red, and green. It is the brain that finally recombines these 3 receptions to recreate an image rich of 15,000 shades. Raptors, birds of prey, have the same blue, green, and red cones, but also an additional cone.
It's one specialized in the vision of violets, of shades that they can perceive but humans cannot.
It is difficult for us to imagine the combination of colors that raptors, birds of prey, can perceive with this additional photoreceptor, and they are not the only ones that see more colors than humans. Visible light that our eyes are receptive to constitutes only a minute portion of the light spectrum. Because our senses are limited, we have access to only 2.5% of the immense range of rays. The smaller wavelengths correspond to gamma rays. Then come the X-rays that we use in radiology, and then the ultraviolet rays from which we protect ourselves. The wavelengths that are beyond the visible are the infrared, that allow us to film at night, followed by microwaves, that we use to heat our food, and radio waves with which we broadcast sound. Some species are able to capture more wavelengths than humans. This should allow them to see other colors invisible to our eyes. Matthieu Lehoro is a researcher at the CNRS and works on the cognition and behavior of pollinating insects. He is interested in their color vision and how they perceive the world.
I trained bumblebees to gather pollen on flowers that had no color. The bumblebee associated the reward of sugared water, served nectar, to this transparent platform. When I had several foragers trained, I then placed several artificial flowers that had the same shape as the transparent flowers. But this time, those flowers were of different colors. I had a blue flower and a yellow flower that they can perceive, and a red flower that they perceive as black, because they do not have the visual receptors for red. But for them, these were 3 different colors. And we realized that the different bumblebees chose one of these flowers at random, so one of these colors at random. As there was sugared water on each of these flowers, the bumblebees associated the sweet reward to the color of the new flower. What happened next is that the same forager always went to visit flowers of the same color. This shows the specialization of bumblebees to a certain type of flower based on color, and this is called the flower constancy.
The first research aimed at demonstrating the perception of colors by bees dates back over 100 years, in the work of Carl von Frisch.
What was very interesting in his work was attempting to separate the color and the shape of a flower to determine what importance the bees gave to each.
A water droplet is deposited on all of the colors, but only one color is rewarded by sugar water.
With always the same procedure, rewarded by a color form, for example, a yellow star. He taught the bees to forage on this yellow star, got his recruits, then after about 15 minutes he changed his cards. This time around, he inverted the colors and shapes, resulting in a yellow circle and a green star, for example. What he noticed was that the bees would systematically visit the yellow circle rather than the green star, which shows that the bees give priority to color over shape of a flower when they make a foraging choice.
If the bees prefer to rely on the color rather than the shape of a flower, what do we know about how they interpret the image? We know but very little about the circuits in the brain that are involved in learning and visual memory.
The first step is to develop teaching protocols using stationary bees, and we've recently developed teaching in a virtual world. We have a bee that is walking on a ball, not moving around but walking in the same place, and as it walks on this ball, it moves the virtual world which is projected on the screen around it. What we achieve is a bee that associates moving towards a visual stimulus that is rewarded and avoiding a visual stimulus that is not rewarded. So conditioning and visual memory are a result. The important question today that we'd like to answer is, how do bees see the world? We have two major hypotheses. With a compound eye, 5,000 ommatidia on each side, they can potentially see the same image 10,000 times. The second assumption is that the information of these 10,000 ommatidia will recreate a single image of the environment, as is the case of humans, actually.
If it is difficult for us to know how the bee interprets the image in its entirety, but thanks to research it is possible to determine that they are sensitive to other colors than us.
We know that these ommatidia have sensory receptors and that they are sensitive to the colors green, blue, and ultraviolet. So clearly what these bees perceive visually is a mixture of the colors green, blue, and ultraviolet. Theirs is a different world from ours because we are not capable of perceiving ultraviolet.
Technology can open the doors to this forbidden world. To access these wavelengths that are inaccessible to us, Richard Galley has dismantled more than one camera. Cameras are built to be adapted to our vision, to our reality. For this, manufacturers use infrared and ultraviolet filters to block this type of light ray that we are incapable of seeing.
Shooting in ultraviolet is what is most difficult. You have to remove all the original filter system and replace it by a blade like I'm doing for this customer. This is split silica, the quartz is here. This is a very white glass that lets all the rays through. And once you have that, the sensor retrieves the widest spectrum possible. After that, you have to remove all the visible and the infrared because you want to keep only the ultraviolet. So with your filter that you're going to put on the lens, you'll remove the visible, the infrared, and you're going to let only the ultraviolet pass through.
By removing the filters that block infrared and ultraviolet, we can finally see the rays that are invisible to us.
Time to try.
We gave Leah one of Richard Galley's cameras that permits observation of ultraviolet rays. She's going to test it in nature to get a better idea of bee vision. Plants are dependent on insects to ensure their reproduction. By foraging one flower after another, they are going to disperse the pollen. Flowers have developed many strategies to get noticed and attract insects. The camera reveals an ultraviolet world, quite different from what we are used to seeing. Ultraviolet patterns are more often found at the flower's center where the pollen is kept. The function of UVs would therefore be to guide the insects and to facilitate the discovery of the precious nectar. In ultraviolet, it is not only the flowers that change. Our freckles appear much more marked, and sunscreen has completely changed color. Some species are able to see elements invisible to us by using a range of the spectrum that is inaccessible to us.